The end of Khazarian mafia tyranny on the planet Earth is getting very close indeed. The Rothschild and other top Khazarian mafiosi families like the Borgia, the Medici, the Del Banco Warburg, the Rockefellers, including the Clintons and the Bushes, have been given until July the 10th to reach a peace agreement with the people of the planet. After that, a bounty of $100 million each, payable in gold, will be handed over to anybody who can arrest, and if they resist arrest, kill members of these genocide families. We are hearing there is vicious infighting and arguing going on within the family about what to do about the situation. As this newsletter was about to go online, we were contacted by one faction of the Rothschild, and a meeting with the White Dragon Society representative is now being arranged for this week. The meeting will discuss how to create a financial system that is good for both humanity and nature. It will also discuss creating a new meritocratic, democratic, and transparent system for planning the future of our species and this planet. To remind these families of what is at stake, here's a message sent to them by senior Pentagon officials. I've been told from multiple sources that there's a multitude of people, men and women, who are waiting for the RKM to not cooperate. These are people who are eager to end the life of the RKM criminals at every level. You may want to let the representative know that this is for real. They cannot run or hide. Their time is up. It is time to vote or they will die, including their families, to the furthest distant cousins, effectively ending the evil bloodlines who have bedeviled mankind for so long. Again, good luck with the negotiations. If they renege, there will be consequences, major ones. That being said, have a great day. In the past week, the Chinese government has also contacted the leaders of other Asian countries as well as the heads of the G20 group of nations to inform them that they expect a deal to be reached between the White Dragon Society and the Rothschild family group. The Chinese are too polite to make threats, but this is a statement issued by the Chinese Freemasons. We will cooperate with any religion, any society, any faction, any political party, or any country that agrees with the principles of coexistence and co-prosperity and world peace. However, we will cut off relations with anyone who fails to agree on the goal of world peace. Yet another group, claiming to represent a coalition of 172 sovereign nations, also threw in support last week for a new, inclusive financial system. Pentagon sources are saying that German Chancellor Angela Merkel, a member of the Saxe-Gotha-Rothschild family, already reached a deal with the Chinese when she visited China on June the 30th. According to that deal, Merkel promised to resign after Greece accessed the EU. In exchange, the Chinese agreed to rescue Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank would not otherwise survive a Greek exit from the EU because it would mean the default on Greek debt, which has been used by Deutsche Bank to create derivative mountains. These mountains would collapse once the sand of Greek debt they have built on is removed. The other EU country where a crisis is quickly coming to a head is Italy. Their Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi promised a €150 billion government bailout for Italian banks, only to be publicly scolded by the Germans, who said no to such a deal because they would end up paying for it. The Italians then told the Germans it was up to Italians to decide. This degenerated into a public spat that is likely to end up with Italy reverting to a lira and Renzi resigning, CIA sources in Europe say. Then, of course, President Franco's Holland will also be forced to resign as when the Italy left. France will also be forced by financial reality to leave the euro and revert to franc. Also, Austria's highest court ruled last week that the recent presidential election held there was marred by fraud and needed to be held again. This is almost certainly to result in the election of the far-right party presidential candidate Norbert Hofer. The pro-EU factions have tried to stop this disintegration by proposing an even tighter, more centrally controlled EU. They are even proposing expanding the EU into the Middle East and Africa. Of course, given their unpleasant colonial history, you can pretty safe in betting the peoples of Africa and the Middle East would say thanks, but no thanks. Clearly, the EU project envisioned as evolving into a Soviet Union-style world government is doomed. In this situation, EU Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, who is apparently daily getting drunker, told the EU Parliament he had discussions with leaders of the other planets about the situation in EU. You can be sure the exopolitics and galactic folk had a field day with this. In the United States as well, the Khazarian mafia is in deep trouble. The widespread uproar over Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton's activities is a clear sign of this. As have been widely publicized in multiple media platforms, Bill Clinton basically backed into an airplane where U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch was and had a 20-minute private talk with her. Needless to say, with his wife a subject of a criminal investigation, this meeting was widely lambasted as blatant interference in the legal system. The assumption most people are making is that Clinton threatened Lynch on behalf of Hillary. In any case, Lynch later issued a public statement saying she would go along with what the FBI career officials decide. These career officials have long made it known that if Hillary was anybody else, she would have gone to jail a long time ago. CIA sources in Washington, D.C. say the most likely scenario now for Hillary to be found guilty and then be pardoned by the President Obama. However, neither Hillary or any other members of the mafia are going to be allowed to run the U.S. again. Multiple lawsuits about stolen elections are also making it very clear the American people are now in open revolt against the brazen election stealing by the Khazarian mafia. Pentagon sources are now saying this is part of an open, wholesale revolution going on against the tyranny of the Federal Reserve Board. One source says Brexit inspires the Texas and Califaxes, and then other states will also roll out. There will also be a message from NATO, the UN, and globalist free trade agreements like NAFTA, TPP, and TTIP, the Pentagon sources predict. There has also been a complete turnaround in the Middle East. As we reported last week, Egypt and Israel are now applying to join the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a group that their supposed long-term arch-enemy Iran is joining. Now Turkey has suddenly made a 180-degree turn and is now re-establishing friendly relations with Russia, Israel, and soon even Egypt. It looks like peace is finally about to come to that long-dominant region. The faction of Khazarian mafia that still stubbornly wants to start the World War III and trigger Armageddon has not completely given up though. On that front, there was some action in Moscow last week of the sort that would make for a great spy movie. Sources in FBI as well as reports in news outlets like the Washington Post and the official Russian TASS news agency all agree there was some sort of shooting incident near the U.S. Embassy in Moscow last week. They also agree that a seriously injured U.S. diplomat was flown out for emergency treatment. The such a failed news site run by U.S. Naval Intelligence says the Russia seized some sort of electronic device containing information about personnel in the Russian Baltic Fleet. Immediately after this incident, the head of Russian Baltic Fleet and many of his sub-commanders were relieved for the duties. The Russians also immediately made a public offer to provide exact transporter coordinates to neighboring countries for the all planes flying in the open airspace over the Baltic Sea. Clearly, this was aimed at preventing any misinterpretation of Russian actions in the region. Given the past behavior of the Khazarian religious fanatics who want to trigger the end times, it's a good guess that yet another attempt to start a nuclear war will stop it. What these religious fanatics need to get into their heads is that the world is not about to end, the world is about to begin or be reborn into the paradise it was always meant to be. On the front, hopefully, we will have some good news to report next week if negotiations with the Rothschild representative go well. If not, the battle will continue until the world's people are victorious. Planetary liberation is coming soon.